Today's assignment, we're going to be working with a new file, and this one looks at a set of class marks. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be trying to calculate the marks for each student for this class based on a few different criteria. One would be based on the assignment marks that they get, and then also based on the class marking scheme, which looks at giving different percentages to different types of assignments. So along the top, you see the names of the assignments. And then on the next row, you see the type of assignment. And for this class, we've assigned 3 different types: classwork, assignment, and test. And then below that, we have what they're marked out of. So each one has a total of what it would be marked out of. And then below that, you have the student marks. Now down at the bottom, we have some empty spots where we're going to be entering in some data later on. And then we have our marking scheme reflecting what percent each different type of mark makes up for the class mark. So we have 20% for tests, 40% for assignments, and 40% for classwork. So now what we're going to do is we're going to just calculate the totals that the students have for their marks for each of these different categories. We've already created those columns at the far end of our data. And the first thing that we're going to be doing is we're going to be calculating what the totals are for our classwork, and then the totals for assignments and the totals for tests for each of the students. And we're just going to begin by calculating what the actual total could be, the maximum total. And we're going to be using a sum-if equation for that. So for this one, we're just going to type in equals sum-if. And we've used the sum-if equations before. And so for this sum-if equation, what we want to know is what the total marks would be if they are classwork. So we're going to say sum-if, and we're going to click on that whole row 2, and then we're going to use comma, and then again we put in our quotation marks, and then we have to type in for classwork for our first one, quotation marks, and then the totals would be in row 3. So then I click on row 3. Now, some of the mistakes that some of you have been making in these earlier on was your equations weren't working because of either spelling mistakes in the equation or spelling mistakes in your data itself, and they were giving you error messages or incomplete additions or sums. So you really have to be careful with your spelling, both in the data itself, because if you spell one wrong, it's not going to be used in the equation, and also in your spelling in here. Even something as small as a space in this equation, like if you put a space in between the quotation marks and the word, it won't find that word here because it's looking for the word with a space. Same thing with your writing up here. If you type in any of these or copy and paste them in and it picks up a space, you may not see it, but it might be there, and that will mean that the equation won't work correctly. So make sure that all your spelling is wrong. And if you do find an error, if your numbers are any different than what mine are, it's probably because there is a space somewhere. So I'll press enter. Now that gives me my total for classwork, which means that they have a maximum value of 70. And now I'm going to do the same thing for assignments and for tests. So I'm just going to copy these over. And then I'm just going to change the wording for classwork to assignment. And then for tests. Okay, so those are the maximum amounts that the students could get. And again, if I did make any mistake, if I put in a space, you can see right away that that stops working. Or if I spell it incorrectly, it'll stop working. So I'm just going to undo that. Okay, so now I'm going to use the equation to calculate what the students have gotten on these. And to do that, I could copy and paste this equation down. But if I do, I get a 0. And the reason is because as this goes down to the next one, it assumes that you want to move everything down a row. So it moved the 2, 2 down to 3, 3, and the 3, 3 down to 4, 4. Now I want it to be 4, 4, but I don't want the sum-if classwork to come from the 3 row. I want it to come from the 2 row. Now, I don't want to make you have to retype this every single time. That would be a lot of work. So what I want to do is show you a quick way to do that, and that's using a function called named ranges. So rather than use numbers here, if I give the actual range of data a name, I can type the name in here. So I'm going to show you how to do that, and then we'll fix up our equation. So I'm going to delete that equation, and the named range that I want to be consistent is the whole 2 row. So I'm going to click on the 2 row, and then I'm going to go to Data, Named Range, and I'm just going to call this Type. Click Done. And now I go to equals SUMIF, and now I'm going to enter in that type. And once I start typing it in, it'll show up there. So I say type, and if I say type is classwork, and I spell it correctly, then sum it up for row 4, which is the one I'm working in. Press enter. Now I have my total for that. And now if I copy this, it changes for each row, and you don't lose it by moving down because you've put in that name range of type. So it just keeps that consistent area to get that data from, while where it's getting it from is moving down. So it allows us to speed up that equation when we're trying to create that for a large group of data. So we'll do that for the whole class. And now we're going to do the same thing for assignments. So we'll go over here, and again, I can just copy this equation across. And now I'm going to change the wording to the correct column that I'm in. So change classwork to assignments, assignment, not mints. And change this one to test. And now if I copy those down, we should have our totals. All right, and the last thing we're going to do on this is we're going to calculate something that's commonly calculated when you're doing marks or when you're working with data, and that is our mean, mode, and median. So you've used these before in math, I'm sure. Mean is the same thing as average. Mode is the most commonly appearing number in your data set, and median is if you put all of the data in order from largest to smallest or smallest to largest, it's the one that fits in the middle. So we're going to calculate our mean. We already know how to do that one, and that is average. And it's suggesting a value for us, which is calculating it with D3 to D33. Now we're actually going to be doing the average from D4 to D33, but I'll just click on that and then I'll just change that here. If that shows up for you, great. If it doesn't show up for you, then you can just type that in or go up and select the range like we've done before. And I don't need it to have that many numbers, so I'm just going to change it to number and then just knock it down to 1 decimal. And then I'm going to use the mode equation, which is exactly that, mode. And then we'll select our data from here. To here. And then we'll do our median, same thing, type in median. And we're going to calculate it from there to there. And so now we have that mean, mode, and median equations in there. So our mean was 4.4 on this assignment, our mode was 5, and our median was 5. And now I'm going to select those, copy them across to all of our assignments. And now we have all that information there. That's it for today. See you next time.